Good morning, Tribe. We're back here today with Professor Darrell Sareant of Silent Warrior Martial Arts. We're going to go ahead and get started on the discussion of his martial arts background and specifically look at his Silent Warrior martial arts system and how it relates to some of the African martial arts and African spirituality. Professor Darrell, how are you today?
I'm blessed, thank you. I'm happy to be here and look forward to sharing some information with everybody and hope that everybody will benefit from something that I share with them.
Now, Professor Sareant, you came recommended to me by one of my mentors, Dr. Brant Smith, and that's high praise in and of itself because Brant doesn't give out praise very lightly. And we made contact a few years ago, and I started to, just get an idea of who you are and what your martial arts background is. For those of the members of the audience that are not familiar with you, can you please give us some information of how you got started in the martial arts and what martial arts you've trained that have led to where you are today?
Oh, sure. I started training informally in the martial arts with my older brother and cousins back in the early 1970s. My older brother was studying. I remember one was Taekwondo and one might have been a little bit of jujutsu he was showing me. And he began the process of my foundation and giving me my basics, training in my mom's kitchen. And then because there were no martial arts schools near my mom's house, we lived at that time in Staten Island, New York, in what was considered the country area. There was no real martial arts school in close proximity. And the closest one was in an area that wasn't really conducive to African Americans going into that area. So I had to train informally with older cousins and friends that were already training until such a time that a school opened. And when that school opened and I was able to travel there safely, then I began to train at that school, which was traditional Shotokan. Under Nick Bruno, who was a student of George Cofield, Grandmaster George Cofield. After he decided to sell the school, he sold it to a master by the name of Ralph Gastaburo. Professor Gastaburo was a student of one of the legends of jiu-jitsu in America, Grandmaster Pete Serengano, a war veteran and a person who actually was known to have taken people out behind enemy lines in World War II with the Big Red One. So I trained with that system, then went into other arts like Goju after. I went into Jiu-Jitsu after in the lineage of Professor V and Dr. Moses Powell, and trained with various masters in that lineage, Grandmaster Soki Littlejohn Davis, my cousin Soki Billy Davis, and Soki Hassan Khalik, and many others that I had the opportunity to learn the art of Sanukas and some of the subsystems like Kumite-Ryu, and of course me inheriting the Davis system, Debishu-Ryu. Having the opportunity to train with Shidoshi Ron Van Cleef in his Chinese Goju and Aikijitsu, and then from there really moving into training with Hanshi Riko Gai, who also is my cousin in Goju and Kempo and another kind of Jiu-Jitsu, and another gentleman in Goju who was a direct student of Peter Urban. And I'm the inheritor of his Goju system. His name is Seiko Hanshi with DS. There's many people that I trained with in the earlier days in the Japanese Okinawan arts. And that led me to going into the Southeast Asian arts after working within the Sanukas and with Professor V to see some of the Arnis, to work with some of the Kung Tao. I moved up to here in Oklahoma City, and I had a chance to meet Guru Brant. And Guru Brant was the one who took me to the next step in the Filipino arts and in the silat and in the kung tao, sharing with me his aspect of sadik, kung tao silat. For those that don't know, when he had moved on to do work with a sheikh, and the sheikh asked him and I believe Mushtaq to develop their own entity in direct relationship to the Islam, to their sect of Islam. Then he awarded the system of Sadiq to me. So I was the one who took over the Sadiq Kuntao Silat, which eventually turned into the Silent Warrior Arts. And during that time to develop it, I had to continue my studies as Guru Brant was moving forward with his education. I had to continue moving forward in the development of it, and began training with, Mahaguru Cliff Stewart. I had a chance to train with Mahaguru Richard the Bordis, with Ahati Kalindi E. Had chances to train and pick up things from the Wali Sango, today known as Satria Fighting Arts, with what's his name? Stephen Benitez. And so, it's been a long, varied road of arts, and Silent Warrior Arts is precisely that which entails the Filipino side, trained with Professor V type information, with the information from Kuya John Bain, who is the first student, the first person outside of the Pambuan family that received Guro level from Amaguro Rafi Pambuan and his dad. I am the only Guro in the Filipino arts directly under Kuya John Bain, and the most senior person in that system, with my certificate signed by both Kuya and Amaguro Rafi. And the information from Guru Brant, all those things in the Silent Warrior Arts, as well as the Silat stuff and the African martial arts stuff and the boxing. Silent Warrior Arts is a very, very extensive system.
Now, Professor, the name Silent Warrior Arts, what is the symbolism to that name? What is the meaning? Why did you choose it?
Well, great. That's a great question. Back in the early 1990s, the first system that I was giving blessings to develop and sanctioned was Shidoshi Van Cleef sanctioned my system known as Kamau. Kamau is a Swahili word that meant quiet warrior, silent warrior. My aunt, when I was very young, lived in Ghana, and she named me Kamau because of my how I was back then, my demeanor. I was very quiet to myself, but there was always, because of the martial art training and all the boxing and all the other stuff, she felt that there was a warrior energy within me, and so she felt that Kamau, silent or quiet warrior, was a great name for me. And so that's why I used Kamau Ru as that first system that was more Japanese martial art oriented. And as that name evolved into other stuff, Silent Warrior, I just kept it in English, but the meaning behind it was Kamau, quiet warrior, silent warrior, one who is tacit, one who is quiet, one who is protective of culture, one who's protective of community, one who's protective of the art, of family, all of those things, but one who is educated, one who moves forward in being not so much out in front, but even from behind, pushing things forward. You know, silent warrior, that has a heavy connotation when it comes to me.
Now, can you tell us a bit? You gave us some background on some of the arts and the material that's gone into silent warrior arts. When I would only imagine that it's a monstrous task to distill the best, or what you found to be useful concepts and techniques from so many different instructors and so many different approaches to the martial arts. Tell us about the creative process with Silent Warrior. How did you begin to formulate it, and what were your guidelines for putting together what you wanted to present to the public?
Well, awesome. Well, that came through maturity. In the beginning, as with anybody else, there seems to be what I've learned is certain real steps that people take in the beginning of the process of developing their own systems most times. One, they take the information that they had originally learned, and sometimes they try to bring the original level of that training back into that information. So there's no extensive change in the first formalization of a system. It's sometimes that they're trying to just incorporate things that they've learned along the way that maybe they learned differently than their teacher. Over time and maturity, then things begin to happen. Now you start consciously trying to implement those other aspects into your system, into your training, starting to formulate the differences. Next, over time, what people a lot of times find out is that organically, if they continue their study and their practice, organically, things begin to grow and to change and to evolve and to expand. And then finally, what winds up happening is over time, maturity, evolution, expansion, and continued education, they'll find that things begin to grow in their own way if spiritually they allow themselves to connect with the Egungun, with the ancestors, for the ancestors are an ever-present part of the development of the entity. So over my time, I have found that to be my journey and to be my path in the development. My path came from not worrying about the techniques so much, because all of those techniques have things in common. And that is, a Haki Kalindi Iyi gave me a pertinent sentence. And that thing was, all principles are universal. Every single art that you practice, core techniques are very similar. There's only so many ways that you can move your body. So therefore, if you look at those core movements as principles, it takes you far and beyond the box that many of us keep a technique in because of the cultural entity behind it, or because we don't associate it with something else. So I began to associate the core movements with movements of each of these art forms. When Mahaguru talks about how to connect points and how to use this core movement to open and close, he's just not talking about using it as an entry. He's talking about the touching of the points on the arm that affect the most damage. So you have the points in there, and you have the understanding of when somebody is choking and you utilize that core movement, how to move the body off to the side to open them back up for a throw. There's so much within the core movement that if you understand and start locking into the core movement and letting it evolve organically into principle. And then if you studied a variety of arts, go back into those arts and catalog the movements that look or have that core in it, you'll begin to evolve an art form that a name really does not mean anything.
Now, Professor, when looking at a new system, and when I say new, I mean new to myself, when I'm trying to learn something about a system, I try to always look at it holistically, and I try to understand maybe what the differences they are or the specializations as far as mind, body, spirit. And I'd like to know if you could tell me, what is the mindset of somebody that is training in the Silent Warrior system? Are they doing this for health? Are they doing this for a sporting aspect? Or is this a combat martial art? What goes into developing the mindset of a student?
I just say yes, because each individual student takes it the way that they wish for it. I've had students that more so took it because it keeps them healthy. I have a gentleman who started his training at 55 years old. He ain't really going to be getting into no big time, fights. And his demeanor and where he's come from and his journey and his spiritual life, this is for health for him. This man is at 60, almost 65 years old, and you cannot tell. So health-wise for him. There's others that took it for combat, for life training. They might have been in the military. They might have been in the law enforcement. They might be just people, everyday people, who this is their level of empowerment. This is their empowerment of life, knowing that they have a skill to be able to protect themselves. We really don't delve into sport, although I've had students that have asked me about going to do some of the sport stick fighting, but we don't delve into sport. For us, primarily in what I have seen with my students, it is the health and it is the combat.
Now, as far as the looking at the body, looking at the physical, what makes up the mechanics of your system, you mentioned that there's a lot of influence from the Southeast Asian martial arts. Obviously, you have a lot of jujutsu training, and you're a very advanced practitioner of those arts. One thing that our audience may not be familiar with, I think very few people actually are, is the actual practical applications and the existence of African martial arts. I think in the United States we tend to forget that there's a whole other world, outside of us and maybe, China, Japan, Korea, as far as the martial arts. Can you tell me something about the African martial arts and how they became incorporated into what you're doing now? How is it different on a physical level, or what is unique about it on a physical level?
Okay, that's a great question. How did I get moving with that was over the years, before I had an opportunity to meet him, of course, there was some very old magazine articles that had a gentleman on it. I believe it was Inside Kung Fu that had these articles written about African martial arts. One of them, I think, had some of the regalia garb, maybe like the lion skin on. Another one, I believe, he had more traditional garb where he was dealing with weaponry. I then ran across his his tapes. They weren't DVDs back then, VHS tapes. One tape was more inclusive of the empty hand side and the other one of the weapon side. What one has to consider is a couple of things. Number one, all of the ancient indigenous cultures have a very similar philosophy. Africa deals with the realms of combat from a variety of different phases. One, the dance. The dance is an important part because it's inclusive of the development of spirit as you move forward to your battle. You'll find that in Africa, they are doing that dance from that particular area, region, community, as they move into battle. But inside of the dance comes the intrinsic principles, concepts, and fighting techniques of that particular dance. So one person that calls his system is Ijo Ija, and that is Sifu Earl White or Aluo Fashagun in California. Aluo Fashagun named his thing Ijo Ija, which talks about dancing, fighting to dance and dancing to fight. And Ahati Kalindi, his system had exemplified that, the dance into the fight into the dance. Within the dance came the basic techniques of the fight, and then as you enhanced or advanced, then you were able to be inclusive of the wrestling aspect, or the Gidigbo and Eke. Gidigbo is really the sports side, while Eke is the fighting side. The weapons from a variety of places in Africa, from South Africa, with the shield and spear, the from the Zulu, and then you have longer blades, and you have the stick taitib, the North African stick fighting, and there's so many things that weapon systems that we have in Ahati's Saki. And then empty hand, you have all kinds of very, very deep types of fighting, from fighting humans to fighting animals and such as well. So the whole realm of African martial science, African warrior science, is a complete entity that is so far beyond many people's thoughts. It's a full entity within itself. But just remember that all of those indigenous cultures, those that are found in Indonesia, those that are found in the Philippines, those that are found in Burma, those that are found in India, all have dance, including those that are found in regular Asia too. The Okinawan have their dance. They had to hide their fight too. The same thing in Japan has some dance, but not, I haven't seen it in a similar fashion as the Okinawans. So all those cultures, though, dance is a major part of their training.
So the dance is used in your school. Do students learn the dance starting out as new students and then draw from the dance all of the other martial aspects?
No, not in my school, only because I use the African martial arts more so for those who I consider closed-door students and those who I consider entrance into my family systems. Not everybody who comes in, you have to watch sometimes. Because I live here in Oklahoma, not everybody is wanting to do no African martial arts. So I'm very careful, although the principles become absorbed into it. When it comes to the dance and all of that, then I'm very mindful of who I share those things with.
Now, Professor, what about the tools in your system? Is this an empty hand system? Is this a weapon system? If you do use weapons, which ones are focused on in the training?
Good question. In each of these cultures, of course, that has a variety of different weapons. So from a Filipino standpoint, yes, we train both the knife, the short stick, the sticks, the double sticks. We train all of those aspects, as well as flexible weaponry, how to use the bandana and stuff like that, and the palm stick, which in Japanese arts they call that yawata. In the Philippines they call it palm stick. So all those weapons are part of what we do. In Indonesia, you have karambit, and you have like crisp knife. You still have aspects of a short knife. You do have aspects of stick, according to what region and what art form that you train in. And of course, within the Indonesian arts, I've also learned that you learn how to use the clothing that you wear. Same thing in some of the Filipino arts too. When you have a sarang, when you have sarang that you have on, you learn to use the sarang. You learn to use the one that comes around your shoulder. You use the one that's around your waist. We do that in the African arts too. We wear this thing around the waist, and we use it to be able to choke you out as well. So the clothing is another aspect that we've learned to implement from all of these cultures. So the Philippines, Indonesia, and in Africa, of course, we have a lot of different types of weapons as well. What we call the ring knives. We have the wrist and the ankle knives. We have, of course, different variations of the sticks. We have different variations of knives and sword. We have different variations of shields and spears, and there's such a variety of weapons in there. You know, you can't master each and every one of them. So it goes to a point that, you know, based on your where you're drawn to, that's where kind of you go to specialize in that weaponry. And of course, what a hockey tells you, you know, based on what he sees out of you too. And then in Africa, you know, the empty hand, you still got the weapon, the animal systems and all that stuff too. So
now, as far as your empty hand combatives, is the system geared more towards striking, more towards blocking, throwing, grappling? How would you describe the elements of the empty hand system in Silent Warrior?
It would not be. I would say like this: you specialize based on you. All of those aspects are inclusive, and each individual has the opportunity based on who they are in terms of like their demeanor, their journey in life, their experience, maybe what it is that they do for a living. Or they then take and you'll see them develop in those areas naturally. And so it's the allowance of each one to specialize where they need to specialize in, but giving them the tools and making them to understand that they have to make each of those areas as equal as possible, but everybody's going to have the thing that they're drawn to the most.
Professor, thank you for sharing with us about the physical side of the art. Now, what I consider to be most important is the spiritual side of any martial practice. Tell me about the spirituality in Silent Warrior arts. How does it come into play? What is taught to the students? And specifically, if you could share with us some of the elements that you brought in from African spirituality into the martial arts.
All right. Well, that's a great question. First, I was fortunate to have been introduced to African spirituality because of my martial arts. Aluo Fashegun was the first person to introduce me to the African spiritual system of Ifa, which is based out of West Africa. And so when we talk about spirituality and religion are two different entities. And I will never ever force my religion or my particular perspective of the way that I practice my serving of the Creator onto anybody else. I have people who are from all types of spiritual systems, Christianity, Islam. There are even those who train with me who are atheists and everything else. So spirituality to me is the development of working on oneself to better themselves, to grow to be better people, to be better husbands, to be better fathers, all of the above, by working on their character, their integrity, and other aspects that share with them the tools that will help them to become better people. There are certain principles and concepts in African spirituality that become inclusive in all areas of life, that if they undertake those things and learn those things and work with those things, then they begin to see better their life improve and their life grow. Or one of them being the aspect of truthfulness, one of righteousness, one of beneficence, one of patience, one of fortitude, one of uprightness. These are the foundational things that we work on in our tradition in order for people to grow to be the best that they can be. When one is truthful, right? And if one remembers that Sadiq meant truth, then to be truthful is to acknowledge that which is absolute. Not what it is that is perceived, but that which is absolute. And then once you understand what is absolute and what is absolute truthfulness, then the righteousness of things is to hold these things in a way that honors the Creator, right? It honors the higher powers. So all of these principles are those things that I try to share with students as time goes by.
Now, Professor, apart from the mindset, the physical aspects of training, and the spirituality, is there anything else that the students are required to do when training in the system? Are they required to do, recommended reading lists? Are they required to compete? Is there anything else that you find that's valuable to help their development that you incorporate into the training?
I don't really require them to compete. That's a personal thing. If they want to compete, that's fine, because this particular system is not really geared towards the sports side of things. But I encourage them that when they get to a certain level, I do make it a requirement that they have to go to a seminar here and there so that they get an opportunity to expand their view, to have an opportunity to work with some of the other great masters out here and get a point of view from their perspective and from their art forms. So I don't have them compete, but I do have them go to a tournament here, and not to compete, but I have them go to a seminar here and there. Reading, yes, I always encourage them to read, but I don't encourage them to read specifically martial arts. I'll encourage them to read stuff like the 4 Agreements, the 5th Agreement. I'll encourage them to read stuff like, historical information, stuff that allows their mind to grow, but also helps them to see the value of what we talk about on the spiritual side, for them to take hold of it even more. The 4 Agreements are such an essential aspect of be impeccable with your word. All of us as warriors, that's one of the things that we strive for. We want our word to be bond. We want to be impeccable with our word. We want our word to have value and to have the appropriate energy, life force behind it. So if we take the values of these other aspects, it allows us to grow in different areas of our lives as well.
Professor, can you also, for the audience, give us some information about the jujutsu system that you are now inheritor of? It's my understanding you've become, the figurehead now of this program, and I'd like to get some information about that, please.
Grandmaster Billy Davis was, first off, he was my cousin. So it's a family kind of thing that I'm keeping alive for the family. Grandmaster Davis was one of the pioneers of jiu-jitsu in America. He trained since the 1940s, went into the service and was training with the Japanese Air Force Police in their Taiho Jutsu. And their Taiho Jutsu was incorporating a variety of different arts, from the Shotokan with the JKA and the Aikido with the Aikikai, the Kodokan Judo, the Taiho law enforcement defensive tactics arts, and there's like 4 or 5 different arts involved in Taiho Jutsu back then. When he got out the service, he chose to kind of stay relatively independent, but his close friends and all those guys that trained together were people like O-Sensei Ronald Duncan and a very young Moses Powell and Charles Elmore, and all of those people in an era that were the true pioneers. They all kind of came up together. Well, over some time, he decided that he wanted to open up a school. So he knew that he wanted to elevate his rank and all that stuff so that he can promote students appropriately to, eventually to black belt and all that. So he decided when he did that to look up his friend Moses Powell. And he chose to ask him if he can kind of, be a member of his organization, of the Sanukis Rule system. And then once a part of that, then, of course, the lineage from Professor Florendo Visitacion to Dr. Powell, the schools were open primarily under the Sanukis Rule banner. And he trained under Dr. Powell until such time that he was very much surprised by a promotion from Grandmaster Anthony Banks to 10th degree black belt. And although Billy always kind of had his own way of doing things, it really opened the door to Davis Jiu-Jitsu. Debi Shiru today, but Davis Jiu-Jitsu self-defense. And that system is a very, I want to say, simplistic system. Billy tried to keep everything very simplistic. Sanukis, one meaning was simplicity and survival. Because of Billy's life and his work and things that he's gone through, simplicity and survival were a very important and integral part of the development of the type of system that we have in Debi Shiru. So before he had passed on in one of his last schools, he shared with me that he wanted to bring some elements back from some elements back from Sanukis. And so I've brought those elements back for him as well to be inclusive in the system. So we have aspects of the Arnis in there. We have aspects of the Sanukis and the fighting forms, called Pia forms, that we have in Sanukis. I developed our own fighting forms for the Bishiru. We have the ground combatives. We have many, many different aspects in Debi Shiru. So it's evolved, it's evolved, and it's with the blessings of the ancestors. It's with the blessings of Grandmaster Davis.
Now, Professor, apart from your training, obviously in Sanukas, you play a role in that organization, correct?
In the organization of the family of Sanukas, yes, I'm the vice president of the organization.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit about your role with the organization and the activity that's going on with the organization now?
Sure. The Family of Sanukas organization originally was a brainchild of, I believe, a couple of people. Master Anthony Muhammad, I believe Sokia San Khalik, and maybe a couple of others. I got a phone call one day saying that, hey, we're going to have this phone call. All the people are going to be on the phone call. You should call in, start, coming on back to the family, and finding out what's going on. So we would have these conference calls with all of these senior masters of Sanukas in order to formulate what they wanted to do as an organization to keep Dr. Powell's name in the forefront of the martial art society, the martial art world. Over time, different things happened. People's lack of character and integrity showed. Everybody was vying and fighting for what they thought, was going to be theirs and whatever. And unfortunately, the organization got very small, but it's kept alive. We kept it democratic. We kept it where people were voted into their offices. So Grandmaster Hassan Khalik, who's one of the original people that Dr. Moses Powell left as a Grand Master level in Sanukas, 9th degree, it was voted as the president of the Family of Sanukas organization. I was voted as the vice president of the organization. The organization, the primary thing is to keep the name of Dr. Moses Powell alive and relevant in the martial art community today. To show and to share what we learned from him, and to show the relevancy of his art form, which was ahead of its time today, and continue to grow in it and push it forward. So the organization does certain things like a few seminars a year, barbecue, which they're getting ready to have up in Connecticut in August this month. We also do a annual award thing to honor those people who give back to the system. So we have some different events that we do to help keep the name of Dr. Moses Powell alive.
Now, Professor, for people that want to train with you, obviously you are located in Oklahoma and they can go to your brick and mortar school, but you also have some programs for bringing people along that are interested in picking up your material. Can you tell us how those programs are structured for people who may not live in your immediate area?
Yes. In the beginning, I was going to do everything by DVD, but what I have found out is that to watch and check the character of the people that you deal with. And with that, I mean, if a person is not willing to personally bring me to them in the beginning, then I have to question what it is that they're really going to do with the information. So in the beginning, people have to bring me in at least once for me to put hands-on training with those individuals. I want to have the opportunity to see where they're at and then to take them from where they're at and make sure that the foundation is being placed into them appropriately if they're going to really learn and grow in what it is that I do. That they understand how this thing of core movement, how this thing of cataloging, and how to bring all these movements within a movement together to grow and to push forward. After a person does that, then we begin to do some things DVD-wise that will allow them to learn the levels of the syllabus and just to make sure they have the core movement. But that's really what the DVDs are. The DVDs just have the core movement behind it. The real training is the time that you're putting in with me. So our I guess you would call it a distance type program, is just that. It's a combination of training with me, being able to record it when they train with me, a DVD here and there that I have that, will help them to continue on with all of the syllabus, and then really growth with their time and effort being put into training directly under me and growing hands-on.
Now, Professor, you do have some other activities going on besides teaching at the school. You also run your own podcast, and you've had some, great guests on there. I listen to it pretty regularly. Tell us about your experience as a podcaster. What has that brought to you? What kind of experiences?
It's a absolutely wonderful opportunity to have the blessing to meet so many of these great masters, elders, grandmasters, all of these different people who have such diverse journeys in the martial arts. Their journeys are amazing, and the knowledge that you ascertain from being able to sit back and listen to them is priceless. When I had the opportunity to have the show, at first I was hesitant to do it because it was very different than some of the other shows that were going to be on the Doc Radio. But in talking to Grandmaster Khalik, who is the president of that as well, and to the founder, our brother Faqwan Shabazz, they told me that not to worry, just do what it is that I do, and let it grow organically, and that's exactly what it's done. Because I've been blessed over the years to meet many people personally, I was able to start off with people that I knew. In fact, my first guest was my Alua Sekdemek Sheikh, who is also a high-level Kuntao Silat practitioner, and he's the inheritor of the Derobio, the Majapahit Derobio lineage with his teacher. Over the years, besides the people that I personally knew, as the show grew and people listened, who were able to see that the show was really giving people a platform to share their journey, I was then able to slowly and surely get more and more and more and more people. Like, we work close with Grandmaster Mark Wiley, who has his own publishing company, and every month we have one of his authors on. We're working closely now with Grandmaster Brian Fung, who Lohe is the founder of the Ohana 8, and has these great senior masters of Kajikembo and these other Hawaiian and diverse arts into his organization. And now we're starting to interview some of them great masters. We have Malia the Cosmos pretty soon, and we have all these great masters that are ready to share their journey and share their story with everybody. at the end of the day, that show, I hope, will be what I want to be as my legacy. I want that to be my legacy. I want that to show that that's what I did to give back to the arts. The physical side, great. But this, in allowing to keep the voice and words of these elders alive, is a great legacy to hold. I wish that I could get to all of them. But some of our pioneers that are still here today, they're very quiet and closed and reserved and really don't want to talk on the radio. But I'm doing the best I can to get them or their most senior people so that their stories will be told.
And Professor, in addition to, all of the teaching, the podcasting, you even took, and you mentioned this early in the interview, and I think it's pertinent here, but you mentioned the role of being a protector, and you have done that now in a professional capacity as well. Tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing with executive protection and investigations.
Oh, sure. I haven't done that in a little while now, but yeah, I starting off in law enforcement, working in corrections. The finances weren't great, but even before that, working in New York, I was able to begin doing some executive protection with some singing groups, the Force MCs, with my cousin, Grandmaster Kevin Conroy. He brought me into the executive protection field, protecting them. I was also able to be among the first to work protection with Wu-Tang. I grew up with a lot of them, but doing some of their shows and escorting them and all that stuff with pro basketball players or pro sports figures and actors and actresses and stuff like that. So over those years, I had an opportunity to secure a lot of them. And the thing about it is during that time, I was working pretty much unarmed. If I was lucky, I had somebody armed with me, but a lot of times I was working unarmed, doing the executive protection. But it was a great, it was a great experience doing it. A lot of people don't understand all that goes into executive protection. They just think that it's all about, if somebody approaches you, how you have to take somebody down. And there's so much more that's involved with it. You're working on routes and you're working on escape routes and where it's appropriate to enter a building and where is it more safe to exit. The knowledge, the exits of the building and the outline of the building. And if this happens, I have to be 3 steps ahead and 5 steps ahead. And there's so much more that goes along with it, that I was blessed to do it. I might consider doing it again, but, you get to a point in life sometimes and you look at moving forward with other realms. But the executive protection was a very important part. The investigations after I left law enforcement, I was blessed to have been working for somebody who was teaching me the field. He did not want to continue with his security company at that time, so he gave me the security company and continued to mentor me as in the investigations, in private investigations. So I had my own company for a while out here in Oklahoma. But those that know the security game is a difficult game. You to be able to deal with pricing that bigger companies can undercut you by a significant amount. And sometimes people do not understand the value of good security. And so they'll go with the lower price because, it saves them a lot of money over the long run. So over the time, I've kind of let that stuff go, and I've more so have gone back to working with youth. Yeah, it was a great experience. It was a great time.
Professor Darrell, before we wrap up here today, please tell the audience the name of your podcast, where they can find it online, and also where they can get a hold of you. What is your website and your contact information?
Sure. They can contact me. The name of the podcast first is Modern Combat Masters. Modern Combat Masters. They can get that on. I'm always flashing it on Facebook for the upcoming shows, but they can always find that on Doc Magazine, DOC Magazine, all one word, .net, or they can go to and find Doc Radio on Blog Talk, the Blog Talk website. Doc Radio has all the listings of all of the radio shows that myself, Grandmaster Hassan Khalik, and others are doing on the network. That you'll get there, and you can get the shows there to listen to a lot of the retro shows. To get in contact with me, my website is Martial Science Institute, and .com, and you can get to me there about the classes that are happening. You can always contact me through that as well as Facebook. My name on Facebook. You can get me there. And, feel free to reach out. I'm opening up again to start going out to do the seminars in all of these different arts. If a person wants to combat jujutsu, that's great. If they want the silent warrior arts, Filipino, Indonesian, African thing, that's great too. And, in the past, I've traveled all over the United States, and I'm willing to start doing that again going into 2017. And so I'm looking for those who might want to grow, expand, and evolve in their arts.
Well, Professor Darrell, I want to thank you again for being on the show. It was wonderful to speak with you. As I mentioned earlier in the interview, we could have conversations with you about a million different things for an hour. So I hope to have you back on the show at some point in the future to talk about, some more of your experiences. But thank you again so much for being on. It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you. We thank you, Fa, and we thank the ancestors. So thank you for having me, and, thank you for all those who will listen in.